Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko are people I find truly inspirational. Their work is pretty much the foundation of my own real interest in animation for television, and I'd love it if they saw this video. Having said that, I'm now going to burn these bridges by talking about why Korra sucks. No, don't get me wrong, I'm not hating. Well, to be pedantic, I don't really set out to hate on anything, though many find my critiques pretty blasphemous. I'm incredibly fond of the Avatar franchise, and Korra is no exception. I love the world, the style, the music, the ideas, and the characters. Not to mention that Janet Varney is absolutely adorable.
I, Janet, am in touch with reality. Now go!
I love you. Which is why it pains me to have to say anything bad at all. I still maintain that the first few episodes of Korra are perfection, and the original series, Avatar The Last Airbender, is my overall favourite animated show. Sadly, it's clear that the latest incarnation is somewhat lacking. I worry that the creators believe that all the show's fans are variations on the eternal fanboy and simply don't know what's for their own good. Well, I like to think that I can offer more eloquence to some of these points of contention. Not to blow my own trumpet, but actually, yeah, fuck it. With Book 3 on its way, I'm keen to address this series while it's still fresh in my mind, and while I'll be looking at what doesn't work, I'll also give credit where credit is due. So, you know, if you're gonna go and click on that little comment box and maybe do that now, that might be a bit presumptuous.
Feel free to leave me a comment. Brofist.
Avatar is set in a world where people are born with the ability to bend the elements, coming in flavours of earth, air, water, fire, and absolutely normal. The Avatar is a reincarnated deity who has the ability to control all of these elements, and therefore can bring balance back to the world when things get a bit rowdy. The Avatar is also able to act as the bridge between the spirit world and the mortal realm. In the original series, the overarching plot was set right from the get-go. Aang had to learn his skills and bring balance to the world by stopping the Fire Nation. This became the forward momentum for everything that followed, allowing the focus to fall on character development and evolving perspectives. Exposition felt progressional, not retractive. Korra does have an overall agenda, but also ekes out plot details bit by bit purely for exposition, and the goalposts shift almost every episode come the second season. Now, on the one hand, this does work if the plan is to really pull the rug out from under people's feet and create a sense of mystery, but the surprises and twists offered are often incredibly superficial, offering little sense of weight or insight for our hero's personal journey or the situation around her. For example, this backstory is well told, but what does it really add to the story we've been following concerning equalism and self-discovery? Our characters are active in pursuing a goal and discovering answers, but aren't very good at questioning anything in the same way as their predecessors. Some threads also simply just don't tie together as neatly as they could. Season 2's adventures in Republic City could probably have been their own series outside of the spiritual unrest Korra and Tenzin were dealing with, and they pair together rather poorly, especially when compared to the parallels between Aang and Zuko's stories of gaining independence of body and mind. The encompassing issue is really that ATLA had growth and Korra doesn't. This is present in 3 distinct perspectives I'm going to cover: spirituality, physicality, and empathy. So let's start with the spirits. Spirituality and physicality were highly allegorical in ATLA. The spirits were deliberately mysterious and unexplained because it lent more focus to Aang's narrative. They weren't simply black and white in their makeup. Well, you know, except for that guy. They were there with specific purposes, even if it was to set the tone or express key introductory differences between the two realms. Same can be said of his physical trials, which were more than simply overcoming obstacles. With each lesson, Aang learns how to control his abilities and emotions, but in doing so has to, by proxy, change his behaviour and outlook in order to master them. He is forced to change as a person, and as he changes, the way he decides to solve the overall problem changes with it. As a result, each lesson, each bit of exposition, each interaction and facet added to his repertoire feels utterly necessary and fulfilling because we feel Aang's ability to adapt and grow offer a sense of progression. Spirituality for Korra, until the last episode of Season 2, was merely a means of plot dumping. Through spirituality, Korra mostly accesses flashbacks. These only give her a basic understanding of the semantics of what must be done and to whom. They offer no personal understanding and are often far removed from her own experiences, which makes it difficult to care for her journey. There comes a point in Season 1 when the plot basically hands itself over to another plot thread entirely. This sadly feels far too detached from the political ideology and character relationships presented to really invest emotionally in the outcome. In Season 2, this continues to be an issue, though frustratingly so, as the character she should be relating to in question is someone she shares family history with. Not to mention there was actually potential for a good story about the misuse of spiritual guidance. No amount of Godzilla can make up for that. Korra's physical prowess is basically rendered pointless to serialise because it's done in a manner of convenience. As a hot-headed character, Korra relies a lot on her powers and relishes the ability to use them, which obviously hampers her foresight in using them effectively later on when they're removed. Not a difficult dramatic arc to pinpoint overall. Sadly, the way it's handled doesn't belie its predictability. She uses an ability because it's the only thing left available to her, but she doesn't learn anything about it or learn from the surrounding circumstances that had her resort to said power in the process. This leaves her at the same point of understanding as at the start of the series. These ultimately feel like Deus Ex Machinas even if they're passingly explained, because we don't experience an understanding of them on any kind of relatable level. At one point, all of her powers are taken away and are then given back without consequence, which is a damn shame. There was the potential to create a very nice contrast from ATLA. Aang was always very reluctant to use his powers, while Korra was itching to do so. He was forced into using them to actively save the day and appreciate his potential, while Korra could have learnt to work within the limitations presented to truly become a more-rounded avatar. The yin and the yang, so to speak.
Ancient Zen proverb, to become a strong, one must lift many heavy burdens. Now, help me get this vacuum to fuck this cake.
The last part is empathy. Aang begins life not only as a child, but as a sheltered one. His reintroduction to the rest of the world means that his journey instructs both the audience and Aang from the ground up on the many differing perspectives and values held within that world. With each new meeting, Aang gains a new understanding on how to deal with the problems before him. How about, for example, his dealing with Fire Lord Ozai, which is a conclusion drawn from his experience from the entire journey. He knows that if he kills the Fire Lord, he will create a martyr to the Fire Nation's cause and violate his own principles. However, if he leaves him be, he will cause unrest and probably be blamed for being ineffective. It's debatable that the final conflict is achieved in a satisfactory manner, but the ending does satisfy the ultimate arc of the series and the character arcs present. Korra also jumps in from a sort of fish out of water stance, but doesn't really gain any insight into her foes or her friends, and they in return seem to be too wrapped up in themselves to have anything resembling meaningful interactions. We catch glimpses of it, but it almost feels like a lot of characters are just talking to themselves and establishing that they are, in fact, that character. There's a clear deficiency in the dialogue as a result. You only have to compare some of the nuanced dialogue in ATLA to Korra to see what I mean.
Well then, maybe you should worry less about the Tides, who've already made up their mind about killing you, and worry more about me, who's still mulling it over.
But I'm gonna do it my way, outside the law.
Incredibly intriguing issues are left feeling moot. The Equalists never come to any understanding with Korra or their bending peers and are explained away under a new president at the start of Season 2. The mob, which is so prominently given notice in Episode 1, also only appears as a plot device every now and then, which is rather aggravating when their minuscule character development seems more interesting than that of our leads.
I am personal friends with the Avatar. I might be able to convince her to give Shady Shin his bending back.
Sounds good to me, boss.
The spirits are surely still hampered by negative energy within the real world at the end of Season 2, and are clearly unfit in many ways to live amongst normal people. Overall, the series just lacks that extra level of humanity. It's slowly becoming a show that draws on skewed sentimentality and world building, rather than concentrating on the sincerity and frankness that made the original series so solid. But do you know what? Some of this stuff is addressed, which is what makes this really frustrating, and proof that these writers are capable of more. What a twist, I actually talk about something I like. It's like nothing makes sense anymore.
If anyone does not love the Lord, Jesus Christ.
The first couple episodes of Season 1 and the last half of Season 2 really do a great job of combating my issues. Season 1 starts with Korra fighting against the element of air until she realises it can actually improve her overall physicality outside of being the Avatar. She experiences the entire range of citizens and the idea that the Avatar may in fact be a flawed concept. Nepotism is covered in a way most series ignore, with the children of ATLA's heroes burdened with living up to their parents and having to deal with the legacy of their actions. We have a villain who brings up a political manipulation under a genuinely imposing guise, and one who invokes the idea of blind faith in a world where we know it may not be so misplaced. The Avatar as a concept is explained very well, and the lack of fulfillment within the first Avatar feels both moving and poignant. Bolin and Mako achieve some much needed character development, pitted against each other as Bolin's selfishness and naivety begin to blossom, preventing him from simply being the comedy sidekick. And of course, Avatar always manages to keep its sense of humour while balancing it against dashes of real pathos, perhaps including one of the best things to happen to the series in a long time. Korra herself finally goes through that long-awaited growth, and while it may feel like too little too late, it is well conveyed. She finds herself manipulated and turned into a political figurehead. She finds that her capacity for strong relationships is tested by her duties as the Avatar. She has her legacy literally ripped away from her, and when she emerges after realising that her strength comes from her own being and not her predecessors, nor the spirit she's the Avatar of, she finds herself emotionally and spiritually drained. She's grown into a shaken, weary Avatar, whose experimental decisions will perhaps hurt her in the future. Her sense of humour, her willingness towards aggression is gone, and she will have to rely more on her own intuition as time goes on. The question remains then as to how things will develop for Season 3. With a title line change, there's a lot of potential for this to be a series that really puts Korra back on the map, and hopefully win back a lot of viewers. I worry that such a wonderful franchise and concept will be marred by poor handling and misguided notions, and yet I know that with every instalment, their integrity is always present, and the love of what they have set forth is always evident. And really, I can't fault that. Mike, Bri, you guys have a wonderful thing going here, and I'm sure that you'll give it the dignity it deserves. Poop. Thanks for watching, that was a lot of words, and if you like that kind of thing then be sure to check out our other works. On the CCS podcast I joined some other nutters to crack wise about the entertainment industry, and my other videos in the Beyond Pictures series help keep my hate mail inbox afloat, so you know, that's kind of a living. Click away, especially if it's procrastination time, you poor, poor soul.